Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. O Lord, please lead us from unreality to the reality, ignorance to the knowledge, and from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Dear devotees, today is the continuation of the previous week lecture, that is the national saints of Ireland. Many of you, or at least some of you, may be knowing that the Ireland is a Catholic country with a rich monastic culture or monastic heritage. Quite a good number of monks, saints have been born on this holy land, that is the Ireland. And also history says during medieval time, good number of fathers or the monks were supplied to the Europe from the Ireland. So it is the land of saints, it is the land of monks, it is the land of spirituality. And there are 12 apostles of Ireland, and 3 are considered as national saints of Ireland. One is our dear Saint Patrick, then Saint Brigid, and Saint Columba. So last week, we did try to understand and discuss about the life and teachings of Saint Patrick. Today, we shall try to know, we shall try to understand or discuss about Saint Brigid and Saint Columba. Now, the Saint Brigid, there are a lot of stories, mythological stories, and debates whether the Brigid was the Celtic goddesses or the saint. Unfortunately, maybe in 1940s, I believe, one of the Pope, he removed the title saint with the Brigid because of the Brigid is also considered as the Celtic goddesses. But apart from whatever it may be, but the people of Ireland and the Irish people, even today, we all celebrate, we all worship, we all respect Saint Bridget. And on our feast day, we also put the cross made from the straw grass as a part of protection. Now, the Saint Brigid is associated with the poetry, healing, metal crafting, fertility, fire, and whatnot. In last year, 2024, 1500 anniversary, 1500th anniversary was celebrated all over the Ireland, and especially in the Kildare, where her monastery was found by herself. So basically, she found a bay in Kildare where many miracles and miracle legends occurred. There are a lot of stories. And apart from that, for a long time, there was a interesting tradition. Abbot and abbess both were there for the monastery because it was started by her, and for quite a good amount of time, the unique tradition in the Catholic monastery was followed. And in the paganism or in the virginal religion before the entry of Christianity in the Ireland, in the Celtic religion, there was a worship of goddesses with the name called Brigid. And the Saint Brigid lived in 5th or 6th century. And in the Celtic culture, this goddess Brigid was celebrated or was honored, was celebrated in the midwinter holy day called Imbal or Imbalk. That is around February 1st. Why? Because this is a midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. Very interestingly, if you see, across the civilizations, across the different cultures, everywhere our forefathers were nature worshippers. based on the movement of sun, based on the movement of stars or moon, or based on the seasonal changes. Lot of festivals were related. So this imbolc also is like a midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. Some of them also say it is also celebrated as start of the spring. So some of them they believe that because when the Christianity entered Ireland, slowly by just like the Christianity when entered in the Rome, they also started accepting few cultural celebrations or their religious celebrations into the Christianity, so that local people will feel uh, not alien. So similarly, even in the Ireland also there is a debate that the to make the people Irish people own or not alien to Christianity, the so-called Christians in those times, they accepted or they adopted this symbolic worship or Brigid goddesses worship as Saint Bridget. And Saint Bridget cross is made from straw grass. We all know that it has been tied in many houses in Ireland. Even we have got in our ashram or in our center, we have also have got Saint Bridget cross made from straw grass. Now, interestingly, Bridget's father was a Irish clan chief itself. Irish clan chief, and he married a lady. Afterwards, I will tell. She was an enslaved Christian lady, or she was an enslaved lady, and who was baptized and converted by Saint Patrick himself. So the Saint Bridget found the monastery in the Kildare, which became the school of art and learning and whatnot. And she traveled across the Ireland preaching Christianity and performed a lot of miracles, especially healing diseases. And she was known for her charity. She spent a good amount of time and energy and money for distributing the food to the poor people. And she was buried after her passing away. She was buried in the Kildare church. Later in ninth century, her relics were shifted to the Downpatrick to avoid the, I mean, problem from the Vikings. But unfortunately, but still nothing happened. I mean, when what do you say? There was a reform movement from the Protestant movements. Unfortunately, the shrine was destroyed in the Downpatrick also by the English troops. Anyhow, she was the patron saint or the mother saint of Ireland. Now, the Brigid comes from the virginal word called Brigenti, means high or exalted. Now, there are debates on her, as I said. Saint Saint Brigid is a Christianization of Celtic goddess. There is a one point, one debate, one argument, one line of argument is the Saint Bridget is a Christianization of the Celtic goddess. And some others argue, no, Saint Bridget was real and she took the goddess's attributes by the grace of the Spirit, Holy Spirit. And like historian Pamela argues that the Christian monks took the ancient figure of the mother goddesses and grafted her name and functions into the Christian counterpart. So there are a lot of debates and arguments in here. But as per the accepted tradition, Saint Bridget, she was born in either 451 or 452 AD in north of Dundalk. And the father name is Doha. He was the chieftain of the Leinster, it seems. He was the chief of Leinster. And her mother name is Broksha. Broksha. She was a slave lady. And she was also Celtic woman, no doubt, Celtic religious woman. But she was baptized by Saint Patrick, and that's how she was converted into Christianity. And because of her mother, Saint Bridget also imbibed the Christian values, the Christian faith, the Christian religion, and whatnot. And again, the legend goes that for some political reason, say, to save the kingdom or to save her husband, Broksha, she forced her husband, Doha, to sell herself, Broksha, for a druid, it seems. Druid is in those days in the Celtic religion, he was known as high class priest basically. So, so basically, Brigid was born into the in the Druid house and he was a stepfather for Brigid. So again, one of the legend interesting story goes that this druid he tried to feed Bridget, but she vomited. A child Bridget vomited. Why? Because this druid was not pure in his blood or whatever. Then, but the druid high priest he slowly understood the spiritual nature of the Brigid. As a result, he freed the Brigid and as well as her mother. Then Brigid mother went and joined her father. Brigid also joined her father. Very interestingly, but so this story also makes us to think that rethink probably the Christians were trying to make the pagan religion as inferior or whatever. As a result, this story was built or what. Now, Brigid spent her youth as a farm worker, churning butter and shepherding the flocks of sheep and tending the harvest and whatnot. Now, see, interestingly, they were all hard workers. So, but they did the work differently. They didn't do different work, but they did work differently. And she fed poor people with her compassionate heart, so much so that her father, who was the chief of the Leinster, that is Doha, got furiated. And once he was so much annoyed, he dragged her, or he took her to the king of Leinster, complaining about her. Look, my daughter Bridget is giving away everything, whatever is there in the house, for the poor people. So there was a complaint. And now, if you see, there's a quite interesting similarities with all the great people. In the Buddha's case, also we can see he was so compassionate. He used to give away things, and he was ready to sacrifice himself just to protect one bird, actually, or the swan. And even in the Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi life, we can see when she was small, when she was at the age of 5, there was a famine in the Bengal. Last year, there was a good paddy crops for them, though they were poor people, but some storage was there. Out of compassion, Sharda Devi's mother and father, they started cooking the khichdi. Khichdi is, I mean, cooking the rice and lentils and vegetables together and feeding them. So that was a staple food in Bengal, in India. So that was served for people. So when people came to know that the food was given free there, many people used to come. As a result, time and again in those days, I mean, in the using the fire, I mean, sorry, firewood, they had to cook. In the earthen parts, they used to cook and they used to serve. Many times it used to be hot, but people used to never mind because they were so much hungry. And Holy Mother Sharda Devi, she was just 5 years girl. Imagine she used to fan these beggars or the old people or the people who have come to eat because it is so hot they might burn their fingers or their tongue. So she used to fan physically. She used to fan them so that the food becomes little cold, so that they can eat and nothing will happen to them. So out of compassion, she used to give and she used to help so much. Among all these saints and prophets, they are known for their compassion, they are known for their large heartedness. So, Brigid was also known for her large heartedness. She was always giving, helping the poor people. And she was always used to feel, she was delighted, she used to feel happy to serve the poor. And when the father was annoyed, he took her to the king of Leinster, and he was complaining. And one side there is a discussion is happening between the king of Leinster and her father. And her father, because he's a chieftain, he had a sword. And sword, what was it was the sword also the probably the hold was containing some pearls or jewels or diamonds or whatever. So there were, since beggars were there, they needed a food. She took the sword when the episode is happening where the father and the king they're discussing about her charitable mindedness. She took the sword and she gave to the beggar and she said, "Okay, you go to the market, you sell it this, and whatever the food you can purchase, and you can go and feed your family." There is a complaint about her, Bridget, about her, I mean, on Bridget by her father that she is charitable mindedness and she is giving all our She's spending all our money or whatever. And when there was a complaint, when there's a discussion, she took her father's sword and she gave to a beggar to sell that and to get the money and to get the food and to feed the beggar's family. When this was there, her father was on a rude shock. And interestingly, the king of Leinster observed everything and he was convinced that she is not of an ordinary woman or ordinary girl. He said to the chieftain that don't worry, she's not an ordinary girl. She's not doing just because out of foolishness or whatever. She has got a large heartedness and she's a with compassion and with all sincerity she is doing. I think you should free herself. You should free her and you should allow her to do whatever she wants. That's how because of the king's command, finally, this poor chieftain, he had to release her from all these things. And that's how Brigid, she left her parents and she went and she joined a monastery. And there, Brigid became a consecrated virgin by either by Saint Mac or Saint Mel. Okay. And in 480 AD, she found a monastery at Kildare, which is called Church of Oak. She also built or founded a school of art, including metalwork, which was very famous in those days. So the Book of Kildare was quite impressive in those days, and it drew a high praise even from the what do you say the chieftains and all. So one of the chieftains says that whatever the Book of Kildare is there, it is not it is the work of angelic and not the human skill. But unfortunately, in the reform movement, that was destroyed and it is now missing. She also found many churches in Ireland. She made extensive travel across the Ireland to spread the Christianity and to convert the Celtic people to the Christianity. So she visited Longford, Tipperary, Limerick, South Leinster, and whatnot. And in the Book of Armagh, there is a interesting story which is very unlikely. That there was a discussion between Saint Patrick and Saint Brigid, and it goes like this: Saint Patrick and Saint Brigid, the pillar of the Irish people, there was so great a friendship of charity that they had but one heart and one mind, two bodies but one heart and one mind. Through him and through her, Christ performed many great works. Now, whether did they really meet or what, it is very difficult to say and it is unlikely. Why? Because Saint Patrick died in 461 AD and she was born just in 451 or 452 AD. And by the time she went to the church and into the monastery and all, by that time, as per historical evidence, Saint Patrick was no more. So probably from her life and philosophy and her mission, spiritual mission, probably the Book of Armagh is saying that that's what I feel. Anyhow, she passed away on February 1st, 524 or 525 AD in Kildare. There is a lot of miracles she has done, it seems, and there are a lot of stories. Some are to be believed and some are to be taken with little care. Because the one famous story goes like this: the Brigid asked the land to start the monastery for the king of Leinster, it seems. So the king refused initially. How much ever she persuaded, king refused. Then she started praying to the God, praying to the divine that, oh God, please help to get the land, or please help so that let the king's mind be changed so that we can get the land. And interestingly, so her prayer was answered and the king of Leinster's mind was changed. And he said finally, where do you want the land? When this conversation was happening, I think she was in the forest. She was near the forest where there was a beautiful river and the woods, forest, and it was a beautiful land. And she said, wherever I'm standing, there's a beautiful place for monastery and for nunnery. Why don't you give this land? The king laughed and he was keeping quiet. And finally, she said, okay, look, whatever the clock, she was wearing the probably a long frock like, whatever the area it covers, if you give that much land, it is enough. Then the king was laughing, and the king said, "Are you sure? Is this only this much? Is it enough for you?" She said, "Yes." And the king said, "Go ahead." Then she asked her four disciples or devotees or attendants to hold the clock. They lifted, and it was getting spreaded, it was getting spreaded, it was getting spreaded, so much so that it became a quite a huge place. Then the king prayed. Then she said, "You have to change your mind." Then king said yes, and he changed his mind. And finally, she stopped her expansion of the clock, and it was about quite a huge area. And finally, king had to donate that huge land for the monastery, and that's how the monastery was started by the Saint Bridget. And one more interesting story goes like this: a young person came to Bridget with a marriage proposal. "I would like to marry you. Please accept." Then Bridget said, "I am not a right lady for you. Instead of that, nearby there is a woods. There are woods. You go behind the woods. There is a lady, young girl, a maiden, and you go and approach her. She will be the right lady." Though initially this young man didn't accept it, and he was thinking that probably she wants to avoid me, hence she's telling. But finally, he had to go. Finally, he met a lady in the place where the Brigid had said, and he felt that she's a right person, suitable person for my wife. And when he explained everything, and that young girl was also quite amazed, astonished. Finally, both of them they married, and they had a good time. And a lot of people's disease were cured by Bridget. And there's one more interesting story, because Ireland is famous for guineas. So by the Bridget's power, so she was able to turn the water into beer. Probably quite a few people were consumed. So these are and she was known for her charitable mindedness. Lot of what do you say, charitable activities was done, especially the food preparation and giving the food for the deceased people or for the poor people, and etc. So basically, she was a great saint. She was instrumental in spreading the Christianity in the Ireland. She created a lot of miracles, cured the deceased people, and helped people to fill their stomach. And she led a great life, no doubt. And interestingly, though she was spiritual in her nature, and not only that, the monastery which was found by her, and it also became for some time that it was a school of art, metalwork, and so many other things. So sometimes very quite interesting is spiritual people, they don't only contribute for spirituality alone, even they also contribute for materialistic sciences, art, architecture, and whatnot. Now, so our third saint, Saint Patrick, we have come to know last week, and this time Saint Brigid over, and now Saint Columbo. We will try to understand. Or one more name, they say Saint Colunkill, Saint Colombo or Saint Colunkill. So he was born in 7th December 521 AD, and he passed away. He left his mortal coil on 9th June in 597 AD. And he was an Irish abbot and a missionary, and who was credited with spreading Christianity in Ireland, and not only that, in the Scotland also. So there's a lot of stories, what do you say, twined with Saint Colombo for Scotland also. Now he found one of the important abbey on Lona, which became a dominant religious and political institution in that region for centuries itself, and is the patron saint of Derry, and is remembered today even as Catholic saint and national saint and 12 apostles of Ireland. So his early life is he was born in the Donegal area, basically. So his father name is Fedelmed and Ethna, father and mother's name. And so modern Donegal, he was born in the county Donegal, of course. And he also stayed his childhood in the Ulster, northern province of Ireland. And as per the history goes, or other available evidences, his father's side. The Columba's father said that he claimed that he's the great great grandson of Neil of the Nine Hostages, a historical Irish high king of the 5th century. And sometimes some of the historians say that he was born on a flagstone in the townland of Lacknoa. And he was baptized in the Temple Douglas, and his teacher and by the foster uncle Cruteneken. I'm sorry for the Irish names. And for some time, he lived in the remote district for 5 years in Glencoe Mikla. And in the Irish language, actually, Columbo means it is dove itself. He entered the monastic school, which is Movila, and he studied there for a long time. And I think at the age of 20, he became a deacon. And also, after completed his training at Movila, he traveled southwards into Leinster, and he became a pupil of an aged person called Jumman. Then finally he entered the monastery of Clonard, and which was governed by that time by Finhin, and for which is known for sanctity and the learning in those days. So he imbibed the traditions of the Welsh Church, and he was being trained in the schools of David. So he also studied Latin. Of course, in those days it was quite common in the churches, and he studied the Christian theology in deep, and he also started preaching them. And in the Clonard Abbey, he became a pupil and he continued his studies. In the 6th century, where the monastery was there, which was very prominent, he was also there for some time. So average number of scholars that where he studied, like in the Clonard monastery, in those days, around 300 scholars were there itself. So in those days, probably it was a very reputed monastery for studying theology and others, and he was one of the pupil in those times. And he was also one of the 12 students who was known for his sincerity, dedication, and commitment for his studies. And he established a church in County Mayo, and which has been known as St. Colmichael Church. And some of the traditions say that around 560 AD, unfortunately, Colombo became involved in a quarrel with the Movila Abbey over a psalter, because Colombo copied the manuscript, intending to keep the copy with him. But Finan disputed his right to keep it, and because of that, there was a conflict, and Battle of Caldrimhin started, which is in County Sligo in 561, and because of that, quite a few people were killed. Which is very unfortunate, just for a book. Then Prince Kernan of Connaught, who had a injury in this revival, and that's how he also took refuge with Colombo. And basically, that fellow was dragged from the Colombo's arms, and he was slain by Dermot's men. So many things, so many collisions happened, wars happened. I don't want to go into that. So this made Saint Colombo unpopular. So he was asked to go for exile. Some say he was asked to go for exile, but probably it has been mistranslated. He was asked to take a pilgrimage. Anyhow, so he was asked to go for exile, or he was asked to go for pilgrimage as a part of repentance, or as a part of, you can say, purification of the soul. So basically, that was because of that he went to the Scotland. He went to Scotland, and there, what do you say? In 563, he traveled to Scotland with 12 companions, interestingly. And there he started a monastery. And for the people, the Ulster people were, some of them had shifted and situated there, and he gave them a communion and other things, and he provided a lot of service for them, and he also provided a center of literacy in the religion, and his reputation as a holy man, uh, it became quite famous in those days, and a lot of diplomats among the tribes in those days. So they started following him. They accepted him as a teacher and tutor, and they used to come and ask for guidance. And there are a lot of stories, miracle stories, related to his life also. So one is that there was an animal which attacked either him or that area, and it is known as water beast, and he was the person who controlled it, and he saved the entire area. That is one of the well-known story. And also, he visited pagan kings in those times, like King Bredel and King Fortria, and he was able to command the respect. Though they didn't convert at that time, but he commanded the respect from them, from both of them. And he also played a major role in the politics of the country in the Scotland. And he was a missionary in his approach always, and he was quite energetic, and he founded several churches in the Hebrides. And he also turned monastery at Luna into school for missionaries. Because he was well read, he was a well accepted person in the theology and all. So he was a renowned man of letters, and he wrote several hymns, and he transcribed around 300 books. But unfortunately, many have not survived. That's what they say. And at the end of his life, he returned to Ireland to found the monastery at Duro. So again, according to the available sources, he died in Lona on Sunday, 9th June 597. And he was buried by his monks in the abbey which he was found at. And finally, his relics were removed in 849, and it was divided between Scotland and Ireland. So, because he's a saint who is, respectable and interesting for both Scotland and Ireland. So that's why in 849, his relics, it was opened. So the relics, sacred relics, were distributed or divided between Scotland and Ireland. And he's one of the three patron saints I already said. There are a lot of schools, community schools, primary schools, and different type of institutions were named after him. And same thing we can see in the Columba in the Scotland also. So he had created some miracles, no doubt. More than that, I think he's remembered for his man of letters and for his theology and for founding a monastery and for transcribing the books and whatever. And very interestingly, Columba is honored by Catholics, of course. Not only that, he's also honored in the Anglican Communion itself, and including the Church of England and the Episcopal Church on the 9th June. So the Church of Saint Columbo in Ottawa uh, and also in Tofino in British Columbia, they respect him, and the Newark and New Jersey, Massachusetts, and there are so many places where there are churches named after him. And interestingly, in India also, the Columbus School has been started by the English medium school, started by the Irish Christian Brothers, which is named after him. So there are quite a few institutions which is named after him in Scotland, in Ireland, and one is in India, as I know. And there are quite a few institutions in USA also. And Saint Columba's feast day, that is 9th June, has been designated as International Celtic Art Day. The Book of Kells and the Book of Duro, which is the great medieval masterpieces of Celtic art, which are associated with the Columba. So he was a great saint, and not to that, he was a man of letters and art and the theology and the education, and the knowledge was widespread because of him. So every saint has got something to contribute to the society, to the culture, to the mankind. Peace, compassion was quite common, no doubt. Apart from that, every saint has contributed something or other. So let us all pray for the saints, for the galaxy of saints across the religion, across the globe, so that we shall also expose ourselves to the divine more and more, and we shall also be the fittest instruments in the Lord's hands, and we shall try to do some good for the society and also try to experience the divine as much as possible. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.